Hi, Shiv. Thanks for taking time out and welcome to the show. So, cricket happening in your backyard. So, has the fever caught on?
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for having me. It's always great getting to chat with you. Yeah, fever's caught on. My routine is pretty set. I make sure my practice finishes by 6 o'clock every day, so I'm back in time for the first ball. I think my wife's going to be sick of me by the end of this couple of months. And every day 6 o'clock hit off, and I haven't missed a game yet. And I'm probably going to go watch one or two in person before it's all over.
But what's the scene like? I mean, are they letting in spectators in very limited numbers, or how is it working over there?
Yeah, I don't think they're allowing spectators as such. I just think it's a few invited guests of the team, of the
Franchise.
sponsors, yeah, of the franchises. They've kept it very, very basic. As you can see on TV, there's no crowds as such. But life in Dubai and normal. It's quite normal. Things are, the caseload is quite low. They've done a lot of testing. I've personally been tested 6 or 7 times already since I've been here. So life is quite normal. You just wear a mask when you're out in public. Other than that, it feels like life is just as normal as it was.
Okay. So, how does the testing over there work? I mean, do they make rounds of neighborhoods, or you have to turn up at a testing center?
No, it's not mandatory. I mean, my reason was, when I went to play in Wales, I had to get tested before going, got tested at the tournament, got tested to come back. I was doing a driving test here. So anytime there's any contact in closed spaces, certain things, if you're taking a test, they require you to get COVID tested. My daughter had to start school, so the whole family had to get tested. I think, with the measures they put in place, you pretty much it's not mandatory, but in one way or the other, you need to get tested to be able to go back to work, to be able to go to school, to be able to, carry on with daily life. So I think majority of the population has been tested, and that kind of gives you a lot of comfort.
Right. But how is it working at your daughter's school? Are they calling the children in batches, or the entire class is together?
The class is together, but they've segregated the classroom into two halves. So they have 16 children in a class, 8 on one side, 8 on the other. So the timings are the same, and they just limit the contact to 8 kids at one time. Obviously, these days with seasonal flus and everything around, anyone sneezes and they shut the whole school down. So,
That's common.
um, yeah, so that's a thing we've had a little scare before, but luckily, again, got tested and found out it was just a regular flu.
Right. So, you spent close to, I think, 5 or 6 months in Delhi before you left for Dubai. Uh, how different was life here and there? I mean,
I think to be fair, if I'm to draw comparisons, I was in Delhi during the harshest of lockdowns, or in India rather during the harshest of lockdowns, and I didn't spend any time here during a lockdown. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison. But the first couple of months that I spent in India, I mean, it felt like, I was too young then. I probably don't remember it. It felt like the '84 riots or something. There was a curfew across the city. You were afraid to even step out of your gate. Police sirens wailing all over town. So it was a very airy feeling. But I think it was required. In hindsight, as you can see, obviously the cases are where they are.
mm,
Uh, so I don't think I can draw a fair comparison. But towards the end, in India, there was that trepidation to go around and to walk around, and you didn't know who was sort of might possibly be infected, and you have aging parents at home, and you want to make sure that you're not passing on any infection to anyone. So life wasn't normal at all there. Your practice was very limited. Wherever you could go, you weren't meeting many people. Whereas here, I feel like other than wearing a mask, life is absolutely normal.
oh, that's great. So, how much did you, since you had a lot of time to yourself, how much did you kind of introspect on the journey so far?
You obviously, whenever as a competitor, when you're not competing and you're sitting around, it's a great time to do some goal setting, to kind of chalk out short term, medium term, and long term goals. I got to do that. I got time to figure out a plan, put a plan in place. There's a lot of things that you also want to do while you're playing, but competition kind of gets in the way of it. You don't want to experiment too much. When you've got a competition 2 weeks away, you can't go hard in the gym, or you can't try and make changes to your swing, because at the end of the day, you're trying to perform at the highest level every single time. So I think in some ways, it's a blessing in disguise. It gives you the time to work on things I haven't had time to do in the past. Work on the fitness angle, the mental aspect, just a holistic approach. Treat it as an extended off season. Honestly, the first couple of months was great. I got to do all the things that I crave to do. Be at home, and I enjoyed it. But sort of post that, it got to the stage where the competitor in me wanted to get out there and play again.
Yeah. So, considering that you had a fairly large phase where it was kind of time out, so when you got back, what are the areas of your great game that you you felt needed to be worked on, which otherwise you don't have the time to do?
So one of the major things is, I think, the way the sport has changed. Everyone these days, the flavor of the week is Bryson DeChambeau. Everyone's talking about the immense distances he's hitting it. But I've just felt over the last couple of years that there's been a paradigm sort of shift in the game where golf is becoming more of a power game. And I went from being pretty much average length on tour to being shorter than average. I haven't put on any distance, but the average distance on tour has probably gone up 20 yards in the last 5 years. Part of that is technology. Part of that is the way people are taught the game now, the way courses are set up. There's many factors. We can go into that discussion another time. But the main thing is, I felt that I wanted to bridge that distance gap a little bit. By no means am I trying to put on 40 pounds and hit it 350 through the air or get a 200 mile an hour ball speed. But I'm trying to sort of use this time where, I'm getting on in age as well. So to compete with some of the younger guys, I wanted to work on some stuff where I could get my swing speed up, get my fitness levels up, so that it gives me longevity in the game. And also, when I'm back out there competing, I feel like I've added, 4 to 5 miles an hour of swing speed, and you can be a little bit more competitive with that. It's hard to do that, when you're playing in season and when you have tournaments around the corner. But I've given myself a 3-month plan, and I'm sort of, I'd say, a month and a half into it. And I'm already seeing some results, which are quite encouraging. So I'm hoping by the time, the 3-month or the 100-day barrier kind of rolls around, I see some significant changes.
Taking an impartial view, Shiv, what is your take on the power versus finesse debate?
Look, I don't think it's any debate. There's obviously been a lot of talk of whether we should change the ball or the equipment should be reined in and all of that. I think the mistake is actually in the way they're setting up golf courses. The last, I'd say decade or so, I've seen everyone's been talking about, the distance and how classic courses are becoming obsolete, and the players are just overpowering them, and whether it be St. Andrews or even Augusta. But I think it's a setup. You've got to have more of a premium on hitting fairways. You've got to have more of a premium on hitting greens. If you have smaller greens, firmer greens, and you have runoff areas, you've got to have a proper short game. Now, the way the courses on the PGA Tour are set up, and most of the courses around the world are set up, it's hit it as far as you can. Even if you hit it in the rough, get it. The closer you are to the green, the better chances you have, because the rough is consistent from, say, 270 yards to 350 yards. So you've got a better chance of hitting a wedge on the green than a 7-iron. So you're playing sort of more into the hands of the bigger hitters. So if you're trying to kind of proof the course against the bigger hitters and stop them from overpowering it, then I think it's got to be the setup of the courses. The design has got to be, risk reward is always going to be there. You want the bigger hitters. If somebody can hit the ball like Bryson DeChambeau is right now, 350 yards and straight, there's no way you can proof a golf course against that. But you want to reward good golf shots. And I've heard a lot of things, Matthew Fitzpatrick's comment or other people's comment. At the end of the day, hitting the ball a long way is a skill. Hitting the ball straight and long is an exceptional skill. And he's putting well at the same time. So anyone who's going to hit the ball those immense distances and straight you're not going to be able to defend a golf course. But if you still put more of a premium on short game shots, approaches into the green, firm greens, then it's going to, it's going to reward the best golfer of the week and not necessarily the longest off the tee. Um, yeah, I'd say in some ways, if you're a big hitter, you want to see it that way. I've never been a big hitter, but I've seen it from the greatest tournaments you play or the best setups for major championships. I can go back to the US Open in 2014 at Pinehurst, where there was zero rough. There wasn't any rough on the golf course at all, and there was still only one player under par, and that was Martin Keimer, who by no means is the longest in the field. But what that did that week was there was a lot of focus on your approach shots into the green. They give you a lot of options. It wasn't just if there's rough around the greens, there's only one shot you can hit. That's a flop shot. Yeah, you had to hit bump and runs and use your creativity and imagination. Hit different flights. And I think that's the point everyone's making, that it should be a complete test of golf and not just a distinct advantage to somebody who hits it that much further. And this is by no means taking anything away from Bryson. I think what he's achieved and what he's done is exceptional. He has just done the best that he can in the circumstances and what's the way the courses are set up. But to see somebody win major championships, you want them to be driving the ball well. Their approach shot should be good and their short game should be good. It shouldn't be one dimensional. And I think that's kind of the way everyone is sort of looking at this as saying, oh, as long as you hit the ball 350 yards, you don't really have to do much else.
So suppose if you were to get Bryson to the Delhi Golf Club, what would he do?
Yeah, and again, that's not a course you can overpower. You see, that's my point. And I don't think he'd hit driver in more than 3 or 4 places. But at the same time, you've got to chip it, you've got to putt well, you've got to find fairways. And I think the classic courses, Hong Kong Golf Club being one of those, Royal Melbourne, even Carnoustie, those kind of courses can't really be overpowered. And I think that's to do with the setup, the way the bunkering is, the way the greens are. So again, I'm hopping on about the same thing, but it becomes more about the setup of the courses rather than the distances people are hitting it.
So once you're done with your playing career and you move on to golf course design, so what are the features that we need to keep in mind? The Shiv Kapur signature golf course.
Yeah, I think you'd see pretty narrow fairways. I think you'd see small greens. I think every designer or every ex-player that designs golf courses has a bit of their own game bias into it. If you see, the courses that Montgomery designs, for example, they favor a left to right shape. Courses that Gary Player designs, there's a lot of bunkering. The bunkering is quite penal. He was a very, very good bunker player. So, every designer has their DNA. In my case, I wouldn't be building the longest golf courses, but I'd definitely be building golf courses where you have to shape the ball both ways. It definitely have smaller greens. I think the greens these days, the green complexes are just way too big. Some greens are 60, 70 yards long and wide, and I just don't think that necessarily rewards good shots into a green.
Tell me, you grew up playing the old Lodi course, and now you've also played the remodeled one. Do you think it's kind of become more forgiving now?
I like some of the changes, and I don't agree with some of the other changes. But every time that's a personal choice. I think only time will tell once it matures a bit, once the greens settle in, whether it would actually turn out to play more difficult in competition or easier. I think in some places off the tee they've made it easier, but I think some of the greens have become a little more complex and a little harder. Again, it depends. If the greens are soft and receptive, then it's going to play easier. But if you take the same design of the greens and make them hard and fast, then it's going to play a much harder golf course. So I think the way it's been made, the runoff areas and the new changes that they made, it requires a certain firmness of the golf course. And if it plays firm and fast, then those runoff areas come into play. If it plays soft, like it has been, then I think it plays much easier because the actual green surfaces have become bigger and wider. And, the old DNA of Delhi Golf Club used to be small greens. And if you hit the green, you had a good birdie opportunity. If you missed the green, you had to work hard for your up and downs. So I think they've taken a bit of that away. But again, if they get the condition of it right, I think it'll be a very good test.
I guess the real test will come when we have a tournament over there.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think also what they've done now is you can have a lot more pin positions. In the past, you could pretty much predict which were the 4 pin positions. Now, with the changes, you have more possibilities of pins and where you can tuck them, and so you can make it potentially harder.
Right. So, Shiv, you spoke about your goals that you kind of thought of while you were away from active golf. So, what did you
Yeah.
about your short-term and your long-term goals?
Well, see, the way I look at it, I think I have 5 good years left in me, at least in this game. And that's kind of I guess, long-term plan is look how to get the most out of the next 5 years of my career. And that's the plan I put in place, and I think that's where the fitness part is kind of come in, where, you want to keep up with the 20 somethings and, all the guys that are hitting the gym now. And so I need to, look at that as a goal is I don't want to be one of those players that at the end of my career, I'm missing cuts and I'm limping way out and just playing because there's nothing else. I ideally would like to bow out on a high. I'd like to be, Steve Waugh or a Ricky Ponting and score win my last tournament and then retire. So that's kind of the long-term goal. The short-term, medium-term goal is obviously the Olympics, which was supposed to be this year. Now the qualification's been pushed back to June of next year. So that's one of the goals. It's been frustrating not to be able to play the last 7 months without, I played one tournament in Wales and haven't really been able to spring together a schedule. So when I start playing, I think, sort of early December, maybe end of November is when I plan to restart. Post that point, I think the next 6 months are going to be quite crucial for me, and I'm going to, play as much as I can to try and make that Olympic team because that's a big goal of mine. Having experienced, what the Asian Games was and what that meant to me, to be able to, go and represent India in the Olympics would be an absolute dream come true.
Talk about the feeling from the Asian Games when you were on the podium and the tricolor was being hoisted and the national anthem was playing. When you look back and think about it, does it still give you goosebumps?
Yeah, when I talk about it, when I narrate the stories, sometimes I get very emotional about it. Definitely gives me goosebumps. I still say till date, the greatest achievement in my career still would be the Asian Games gold medal. I won professional titles, but those are sort of, personal achievements. Here was something, you won a medal for the country and it meant so much more than just, a personal victory. And I remember, obviously the gold medal ceremony vividly in my mind, but also when I landed at Delhi airport and I had the gold medal around my neck and every person stand there and applauded me as I came out of the airport. That was an amazing feeling, amazing feeling.
So, Shiv, you're now what, around 37, 38. So how does your schedule, especially in the gym, change? As you said, you're competing against the 21, 22-year-olds. How does the schedule change? And what is the focus now more on?
The focus is more on staying injury free, making sure that, I don't pick up injuries, whether it's back or neck or, because earlier when you get injured, you heal much quicker. I find now it takes longer to heal. So injury prevention is number one. Strength also has become important. Look, I'm not, like I said, trying to put on 40 pounds of 40 yards. I'm just trying to kind of maximize the best that I can out of my ability. I realize my strengths lie in my short game's my strength, my iron play is my strength, my so each player has a strength, and I obviously want to focus on my strengths, but at the same time, if I can improve the areas where I feel that I can, whether it's 2% or 5%, whatever it may be, each percentage at the top level counts for a lot. And so the goal is to, be the best player that I can be. I think age in some ways is a number, but at the same time, you also have to be kind of realistic about where your body is, what your physical capabilities are. But, getting close to 40 now, 38 and, 39 soon, you need to be more sort of careful of how you handle your body, and there's more of a focus on the physical side because, over the years, 20 odd years of, playing competitive golf, your muscle memory and the way you swing the golf club is there. I don't need to be hitting balls for 10 hours a day like I used to when I was a kid, sun up to sundown. I can get the same efficiency in 4 or 5 hours, just making sure that I'm doing the right things.
Right. So, as you said, you are not one of those who go to hang around, make up the numbers. You like to sign off on a high. So, once you feel you are done, you have no plans of moving on to the senior tour. Then it will be a different chapter in your life.
Yeah, look, if senior tour comes around, we'll see. It's not at this stage. It's not
Still a
like a
long way
goal of
off.
mine. Yeah, it's a long way off, and B, it's not. I'm not one of those that, and hats off to guys like Jeev and Jyoti and Arjun that have stayed competitive for such a long period of time that, they're all getting close to 50 now and they're still, good enough to win on the regular tour. Who knows? I mean, I'm having this conversation with you now. Maybe I'm one of those, but as of now, that's not the plan. If I do want to look at the senior tour, maybe, I take a hiatus from the game and come back when I'm 48 or 49 and say, look, let's give it one more go. But as of now, I've firmly focused myself on a 5-year plan, really. And if the fire is still there, for me, it was very simple. I said, the day I wake up in the morning and say, go to this today rather than I'm excited to go, that's when I'll stop. And, if that carries on beyond 5 years, then fantastic. If not, I'm also one of those that say there's a lot more in life. There's a lot more things to do. And I look forward to that next chapter when it comes, but still a long way away.
Right. So now that you say you have a 5-year plan, does that kind of is that thing at the back of your mind that you have a young family, you have responsibilities towards them, your daughter is growing up, she wants you to be around all the time. Does that kind of play on the mind as well?
Absolutely. My schedule earlier, I used to play 38 weeks, 40 weeks a year. I was on the road all the time. I used to visit Delhi. I never really had a home. For me, home was on the road. And now my schedule is more 25, 26 weeks a year. And that's a conscious decision. When I decided to be parents and want to be a father, I wanted to be a part of her life. Golf is a very important part of my life. But in the past, golf was the only thing in my life. And I think that's where the transition has come. Earlier it was, everything revolved around golf. Now I have to maximize my time at practice and be as efficient as I can so that I can get to spend that quality time with her. I make it a point to drop her to school every morning, so I get the mornings with her, and then I go and practice and come back in the evening after golf and have dinner with her and get to spend that time with her. So it's a very, very important part of my life. I think a lot of other dads that are playing golf and have families, I think you have to make certain sacrifices for your career, but at the same time, I want to try and balance it out as best I can between professional life and family life.
So one-on-one, what kind of conversations do you have with
Oh, the conversations keep evolving. They evolve every day. At this age, she's 3 now. I've got a smile on my face every day because she surprises me. The best ones are, Papa, why do you need to go play golf? Why don't we play over here? And she'll go bring her club and say, play golf with me over here. Why do you need to go to the golf course? Because she got used to the lockdown where, I'd be chipping and putting around in the house and she'd come and hang out with me and said, what's the need to go to the golf course now all of a sudden? So, and she's learning every day and it's really exciting to be part of that. We're reading stories, we're making up stories. It's a lot of fun. I have to say, I really enjoy that time.
We had a chat during Panasonic last year when you said that moving base to Dubai kind of helped you become rather improve your work ethics. Talk about that. How has that kind of shift helped you?
Well, I think work ethic is something that's ingrained in you. That's your DNA, that's your style. It shouldn't matter where you are. Your work ethic will always prevail. I strongly believe in that. I don't say that I'm working any harder now. I was working less hard earlier. I think I put in the same effort. It's just that I feel the output is better here because there's more structure in place. I think in terms of facilities, in terms of information, in terms of the access to, having a good trainer and to having, all the technology at my disposal is a big benefit. And not to say that you can't produce champions out of India, you absolutely can. But I figured, like, again, we talk about the 2% and the 5% areas that you can improve. And I felt playing on the golf courses that I am over here, competition style, long golf courses, uh, day in, day out, uh, the facilities of practice, the speed of the greens, the trainer that I'm working with, and Sujan Singh also being here helping me with my practice, my coach, I've just put a good program in place that is more structured and is more geared towards being prepared for competition. I think the one thing I used to always suffer from coming back to India and then going out to play was I used to take a while to adjust to the greens, because you come back and you play sort of slow grainy greens, and most of the time in competition, you're playing much faster greens, faster speeds, firmer, less grain. So I think every single time the first 1 or 2 weeks was a bit of a adjustment period. Now I feel like when I get to a tournament, the style of golf courses that I'm playing and practicing on is very similar to what I face in competition. So I think that in some ways gives me a mental edge, if nothing else.
So basically, you're following a better structured program.
A better structured program, better facilities. I think there's only, 2 facilities that I can think of. Most of the time you're practicing, you don't even have proper grounding of, old divots and mud, and the turf isn't very good. And when you're chipping, onto greens that are not giving you, the proper feedback. Bunkers don't have proper sand. But again, I've done that as a kid. It's all part of a learning process. But I think when you get to tournaments, you have to make those adjustments. And for me, it's better to be practicing on tournament-like conditions day in, day out, so that when I actually get to a tournament, it's not such an adjustment. So I feel even if that gives me a 5% advantage, it is something that is quite substantial. And when I came here and saw the facilities and all the technology that I have, whether it be the TrackMan on a daily basis, the K-West, the motion plates, every single thing is just more geared for tournament golfers.
Right. So, getting back to your 5-year plan, getting a full car on the European tour, does it figure in that scheme of things, considering that you played many seasons there?
Look, given what I've seen this year and seeing, COVID-related stuff, and that European tour has been able to actually put a full schedule together and restart, whereas, the Asian tour and other tours have struggled, it definitely gives me that incentive and that motivation to say, you know what, that's where the future of golf is heading. I think, if the impact of COVID lasts as long as we think it is, both economically and, from a health perspective, it's going to be the bigger tours that survive. And one of the main reasons for me not making a push to get back on the European tour was I wasn't, ready as a young father with a young kid to make that sacrifice of doing 35 to 38 weeks. As she gets older and she starts to grow up, I think, I want to give it one more go. I really enjoyed my time in Europe. I think the competition is great. The European Tour is putting up some fantastic tournaments now, with the Rolex series, which I never got to be a part of. So I would like to, maybe have 1 or 2 seasons on the European Tour before it's all said and done.
Right. So we go back to something we've already discussed, Shiv, this fascination for distance. This seems to have percolated down even to the sub-junior levels, because considering that I also tend to travel a little bit with my son, there's this talk of, especially among the parents, कि जी 25,000 का ड्राइवर ले दिया बेटे को 20 यार्ड उसका डिस्टेंस बढ़ गया, whereas the kid might be just 12 or 13. I mean, this incident which I'm relating goes back to 3 years, and the boy was, I think, 12 or 13. So giving him a tailor-made full-size driver, he may have gained 20 yards, but think of the repercussions 6 months down. during your days, was there this fascination for, hitting it long?
I wouldn't say there was a fascination. Back in my time, if you actually hit it 300 yards, it was a big deal, right? Now it seems like 300 yards is the standard that
Yeah.
everyone expects.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I've seen a shift in the game. I go back and look at my old stats in the European Tour to now. I used to be above average in length, and now I'm maybe 15 yards below the average. So the game has changed. It has become more of a power game. And if I was to advise young kids, yeah, is the answer buying a new club? No, it's not really. I don't think that's the answer. But you have to learn to hit the ball hard and long from a young age. It's very hard to put on speed and power later on. I think the problem was we grew up on golf courses the way they were, narrow, tight. We were never, and the way that equipment was, it didn't allow you to hit the ball that hard. So we never actually trained for speed. And now the kids coming out of the college program or the juniors, they're standing there. First, the way the coaches teach them is hit the ball as hard as you can. Then we'll figure out how to rein in that speed. So the way of coaching has also changed. The game has changed. But I think there's a disproportionate amount of attention given to distance. I don't think if you look at even Bryson DeChambeau that everyone's talking about, his big gains have come in strokes gained putting. He's only gained half a shot by adding 30 yards of distance, half a shot. But he's gained almost a shot on the putting stats. So the old saying goes, drive for show and putt for dough. Yes. Does it give you an advantage to hit it long? Absolutely. But the other parts of the game are equally important. There hasn't been one golfer so far that's had an average or poor putting week and gone on to win a big tournament. And that's the bottom line is you've got to focus on hitting the ball close to the hole and holding as many putts as you can. And I think that's where people kind of lose sight of it and get blinded by the whole distance debate and obsession with distance. I think it gives you an advantage, but I also think if you have a good short game, that's a bigger advantage than just purely hitting it long.
Well, Shiv, landmark year 2017. Broke a long dry season, and then you went on to win 3 times. How one is keeping the chin up through those 11 years, and then tasting success in quick succession. How kind of from that low to that high, how did you cope with that?
I mean, the reason we play this game is because the highs are so high, and winning is what it's all about. And that's what kind of makes you get up and work hard and practice for. But at the same time, the lows in golf are very low. It's one of those sports where you lose more often than you win. If you're lucky, you've had a good career. If you're 5% of the tournaments you enter, you win. That's considered a fantastic career. So, 95% of the time you are getting beaten up and losing, and it can be hard and it can be draining. And especially, I think, I hadn't won on the Asian Tour, but I'd won on the Challenge Tour in between. But I think it was still maybe 5 or 6 years between wins, and it's a long time in a professional's career. Positive throughout. I had periods of doubt. I doubted myself. In fact, the week before I won, I was almost considering, saying, what, this ain't working out. I haven't won in a while. Maybe it's time to do something else. And that's the beauty of the sport of golf is that, 1 week can change your life. And it really happens when you least expect it. I think in some ways I dropped my own expectations. I took the pressure off myself and just went out and played golf instead of worrying about results and outcomes. And lo and behold, the first win came. And then after that, every time I put myself in contention, I was excited and ready rather than, being nervous and saying, what, I don't want to squander the lead. It was like, if I can get anywhere close to the lead, I know I can win this thing. So it was a complete shift of mindset. But again, like anyone, and I'm sure all athletes go through this, you go through periods of doubt. And for me, I did. And, eventually, I came out on top, and the belief comes back when you win.
So those 6-7 months, 3 wins in the span of that time, how did your perspective change by December 2017?
Yeah, so anytime you have to kind of three wins and two second places in 6 months, and I probably hadn't had that for 10 years. You know what I mean? So it comes in bunches as well, and I think it's like whether it be cricket, tennis, any sport, when you're on song and in form, you kind of have to capitalize on it, and I did. But at the same time, now the expectations were up again. That if I wasn't winning, I was disappointed, and if I was, I remember, can't remember the exact tournament, but talking to my coach, I said, "Yeah, I finished 12th this week. Played really poorly," and he's like, "Keep things in perspective. You're not going to win every week, and not things are not always going to click for you. But entering the 2018 season, in some ways, I was trying to replicate or carry on the form of 2017, and getting very frustrated that I wasn't winning. I remember starting off, the first tournament of the year was the Singapore Open, and I played really well the first round, and midway through the second round, I was close to the lead, and then I just had a bad patch of 5 or 6 holes, and I was like, I've lost the tournament. But you can't win every time, and I think that was the important thing. And I was getting frustrated when not being able to win, and then you kind of have to, sit back and realize that. Seasons like that come once in a while, and you just got to cherish it, and you can't try and replicate every single season.
If you're going to bunch those three wins in 2017 one side and seeing your name on top of the Open leaderboard round one, how would the two weigh?
Very different in very ways, because obviously winning is what it's all about. At the end of the day, leading an Open Championship was a boyhood dream. You wake up in the middle of the night, and for all those years you watch the Open Championship and that iconic yellow leaderboard, and you'd stand on the putting green in the evening and hitting putts, saying this is a putt to win the British Open or lead the British Open. As all kids dream, and to actually, I had to pinch myself when I actually looked up at the leaderboard and I saw my name on the top of that leaderboard, and I have that picture with me, with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson's name below me. That you know dreams do come true, and as a kid you should dare to dream, and I think all of us go through that, and it was a fantastic moment. In fact, the official book of the Open Championship has a chapter in there, says the 9 holes of my life, and having a putt to shoot 29 on the front nine in Muirfield on a golf course where you'd be happy to shoot level par on the best of days. So that's something I'll always cherish. It's a story I'll probably tell my grandkids one day, saying, look, I wasn't a half bad golfer. I actually led the Open Championship. But on the other side of it, winning is the ultimate feeling. And however small or big a tournament may be, winning is the best feeling in the world.
Advice for the young golfers. Say someone is kind of turned amateur, doing well, and is it advisable to kind of stay back and try and take your career to the next level, or rather, if you have the resources, aspire for college golf in the US?
Look, I can only speak from my experience, where I felt that the college golf experience was the best choice that I made. I think if I had turned professional, beforehand, I probably wouldn't have had the requisite experience. I think college golf does a great job of preparing you for life on tour, not just from a competition standpoint, but just from, managing yourself. You have to, there's no mummy and daddy there to look after you. You're out there on your own in that big bad world of competitive golf, and so you learn to manage your time, you learn to manage yourself, you learn to manage your practice, become accountable. Your coach is only going to tell you so much, but if you're not in the top five and you're not performing, nobody has the time of the day for you. So you've got to get out there and you've got to practice harder than everyone else and make sure you make that team. And I thought that was where I learned a lot of my work ethic, was from college golf, and I think that carried on to my professional golf life, and it served me well. But then there are others that have turned pro early and had a lot of success. So I think it's horses for courses, but at the same time, I think I see too many kids in a hurry to turn pro, and a lot of times it's not their dream, it's more their parents' dream, and the parents pushing them to kind of turn professional early and join the paid ranks. Whereas it's not like other sports where you have a very short shelf life. In golf, you can easily play for 20, 25 years at the highest level. So I think a certain amount of maturity and in the game, as well as in the head, is required for golf. But I've been proven wrong with that. There've been kids that have turned pro at 15, 16 and done well, and there's others that have fallen by the wayside. So there's no perfect formula, but I personally feel, turning pro at 21 after college isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world.
So Shiv, I won't hold you back. I think the match has started. So what are you supporting Delhi?
Delhi's not playing today, but yes, I do
Not
support
today,
Delhi.
but is that where your money is, or are you supporting other teams as well?
Well, the thing is, I have a few friends in all the teams now, so it kind of becomes, you find yourself conflicted sometimes. But when Delhi plays the rest of the team, Delhi is obviously where my heart is. That's where I grew up. So, and they're looking very good this year. I'm very impressed with the lineup. The two fast bowlers, Nautje and Rabada, and Nautje bowling over 150 Ks is exciting. And then Shikhar Dhawan at the top of the order coming good now. Delhi is looking like a very balanced side. I mean, when you can leave a guy like Hetmeyer out of the lineup, you know that you're a very, very strong side. So they've started well, but playoffs are coming and you got to be ready.
So you are planning to make a beeline for the stadium if Delhi make the playoffs?
Delhi's in the final, I'll be there.
Okay. So finally, Shiv, with the PGTI restarting early next month and 5 tournaments lined up till the end of December, you plan to play at least the 2 big ones?
Yeah, I'm definitely coming back for Jeeves tournament. I've had a chat, and that's something I want to play, and I'd like to probably play maybe 3 or 2. I haven't quite finalized. There's some ambiguity as to what the quarantine is when I come back, so I've got to figure all that out, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. Trying to factor that into my plans, come back, quarantine, and then have time to practice and play. 2 or 3 tournaments, but I'm definitely going to play at least 2 tournaments. Before the end of the year in India.
So thank you for your time, Shiv. And here's hoping that Delhi make the finals. And we'll catch you once you are in Delhi.
Thanks, Robin. Good talking to you as always.
Thanks.